people here, so we'll call the meeting to order, please. I'd like a mover for adoption of the agenda. But before we do that, I did want to mention that report 2020 CAO-013, establishment of a heritage committee to address King's Farm requests, arrived quite late on the agenda, and I'm cognizant that there may be some on council. It wasn't a long report, but there were attachments, and there may be some on council who haven't had an opportunity to adequately review or consider the report. So if there's people on council who are not comfortable discussing this matter on tonight's agenda, they could move to defer it till January. I believe there's some time constraints around this topic, which I think is why we did try to rush to get it on. And I know you have seen the previous reports, but I did want to mention that. So if somebody's not comfortable with the amount of time we've had, then please speak up. And Councillor McLaren?
Yes, I made that quite apparent today that I wasn't pleased with the time. We've got this at 2:31, 14 page. I know some are repetitive, the pages from last meeting, but I have several questions to ask where information that are relayed to in the report is just not there. And I think it'd be unfair to ask staff where this stuff is when I haven't had a chance to ask them outside of a council meeting and say that this report to me is not
well,
complete.
a council meeting is where you should be asking it. So do you
I'll ask it then. All right, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we can leave it there. We don't have to adopt the resolution if we don't want to, but we can certainly discuss it.
Right, that might be the time to start that discussion anyways. And I think we do have an amendment. We had a last minute letter from John Yakubuski, our MPP, announcing a couple of programs. So we will be including that. I think Ms. Mellon will be bringing it up on the screen as item 6.1.3 under correspondence, just because there's deadlines associated with the financial program. So we didn't want to wait till January in case there are things that we need to know from that. So that will be brought forward as 6.1.3. Anyways, I'd like to ask if somebody could move adoption of the agenda with that amendment of 6.1.3, and anything further somebody else can discuss. Can I have a mover?
Sure.
Councillor Fitton?
Certainly. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rochat. Be it resolved that the council meeting agenda of December 16th, 2020 be adopted with the previously discussed amendments included.
Okay, that's amendment 6.1.3 of the additional piece of correspondence.
Yeah.
Okay, a seconder was Councillor Myers. Is he on? Or
I said Councillor Rochat. I didn't see Councillor Myers here yet.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Any further discussion of the agenda and the items on it? All right. Seeing none, all in favor of adoption of the agenda. Okay. That's carried. Then we're going to go to disclosure of pecuniary interest. Councillor McLaren, go ahead.
Yes, on a closed session tonight, I think it's 8.1, 8.2. I will declare pecuniary interest. The fire department, and my son is a special firefighter with the Deep Fire Department.
Thank you, sir. Noted. Moving to item topic 4, public information. We have no presentations tonight, but we can move to notices and information by members of staff and council. So we'll start, Mr. Patterson, with staff. Any updates from staff tonight, please?
Certainly, Your Worship, through you to council. I'll start with Mr. Smith has some recent news in regards to our COVID funding that he can speak to.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Through Your Worship to council, we got an announcement today from the province that due to many municipalities not applying for the stage 2 funding, that there was excess funds available, and that they've decided to allocate the funds to all municipalities across Ontario. which meant that we got about an additional $24,000 above our previously announced stage 1 funding for COVID relief.
Okay, and is it tied to certain certain projects or programs?
It is got this, but look, from what I saw in the announcement, it's similar restrictions to what the stage 1 funding, which is just to help us with either lost revenues or additional expenditures for this year and carrying into next year from COVID.
Okay, thank you. Some good news before Christmas.
I believe it's worth noting that has all it has is the accounting restriction. So we do have to account for what we've spent it on, but there's no application, there's no project focus on it. It really is for extra cleaning supplies, lost revenues, masks, hand washing, all those kinds of items that were above and beyond what was budgeted for.
Right, and I think we've all noted that for our programs that we are running, the number of participants is lower and the number of staff has to be higher to do everything. So certainly that is a significant cost, especially for recreation programs. So that's well appreciated. Any other updates from staff, Mr. Patterson?
Certainly there are a few. Chief McRae is going to speak briefly about the holiday fire safety.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Council, just a fire safety message from the Fire Marshal and from the department. Just a reminder that cooking, be safe. It's one of the leading causes of fires at this time of year. Also, another one would be carelessness with smoking and drinking. People tend to, again, and heating equipment, our furnaces, a reminder to check the exhaust pipes and what have you to make sure they're clear of any snow, although we don't have that much yet, and to ensure that our heating and appliances are working correctly. Another message from the department, the firefighters have been flooding the rinks in town, and I'm told that they could be, if the weather cooperates, ready for skating by the weekend if things go well. If not, at least into next week. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Good news. I'm sure there'll be lots of people happy to hear that. And I think it is supposed to be cold. So thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief McRae. Just a couple of other quick announcements. First off, just want to send a great big shout out to the fantastic job that Christine, the Spirit Gang, all of the volunteers, people who donated or helped support the Santa Claus Parade. I think it was a fantastic event. And I guess particular thanks have to go out to the mysterious elf who entertained everybody on Facebook. A couple other things in regards to recreation coming up. We have posted on the website is the holiday schedule for, there are some ice times for public skates, sponsored public skates. So thank you for all the sponsors there. Again, with the pool, the same thing. And over the holidays, the decoration competition will also take place. So watch Facebook and website for updates, and that'll be sort of a moving thing, but the schedules are up. I also just want to mention the town hall closure between December 28th and 31st, as is our standard practice over the Christmas holidays. And wish everybody a happy and safe holiday, particularly focus on the COVID numbers are not looking promising. So stay at home, enjoy your food, be safe, and that's it from staff. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Council, any updates from any of you, please? Councillor Rochon, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to second how great the Santa Claus parade was. And the mystery elf was amazing. I live on Rutherford, where there are lots of children, and we pretty much broadcasted the elf singing the entire time. And it was so neat to see all the kids love it. And then I also wanted to mention that up on the highway by where Bodie used to be, there's a new store. It's called Rico Refillery, and it's all based around refilling and not using plastic containers for soaps, shampoos, things like that. And it's run by a local, Natalie Surratt, who's local. And I went in there and it's absolutely amazing. So I think everybody should take a second and check that out.
Thank you, Councillor Rochon. I concur with both. I was in there this afternoon, so I agree. It's really great. So, and certainly the parade was top notch. So thanks, everybody. And thanks, Councillor. Any other updates from Council? Councillor Reeve Doncaster, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just update, County Council met for our inaugural meeting this week on Tuesday, and thank you to the mayor for bringing greetings from the town and her words at the meeting. The Reeve of Laurentian Valley, Debbie Robinson, was acclaimed as the warden for the County Renfrew for 2021, and Striking Committee appointed me to Finance and Administration Committee, Health Committee, Ottawa Valley Tourist Association, the Provincial Health Modernization Committee, and something else. Why can I not think of that? Oh, the county's representative on FCM. So that was it. So it was one of our shorter county council meetings.
Thank you, Reeve. It was very good. The speeches were all very good this year. And I think there was a big announcement by, am I correct on the minister's name? Reeve? Lisa McLeod?
Yes.
Minister of Tourism, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, Minister, go ahead if you want, that's fine.
Yeah, just that she announced that Renfrew County had been chosen for the 2022 Canada Winter Games, which is, and she was broadcast at the county council meeting. So that was some very positive news as well. And
yeah, it's quite a large event. So it's the Ontario Winter Games. And
yes.
I think I heard something like 3,500 athletes. So I think the intention is that events will be spread across the valley. So I know we will certainly step forward if some of our facilities can be used for some of those events. And I think that's the intention, is to spread it around. So.
Right. $1 million, I think, is the budget, including $100,000 of legacy upgrades to the local area that hosts the games. So that was all good news. Any other councillors with an update? I just wanted to mention that CNL issued a press release this afternoon with regard to Reeve Doncaster and I were very pleased to be invited to CNL's beautiful new mass timber entrance building yesterday, and we were presented with a check for $60,000 from Joe McBurty on behalf of the Canadian National Energy Alliance, so CNEA. They have provided a grant basically to the town of Deep River to further high-speed infrastructure upgrades made through WEZO Community Communication Technologies. And those upgrades are being done with the assistance of the town of Deep River's Public Works Department. And so we were very pleased to accept that generous donation to help our local internet. I would also like to take the opportunity to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a happy and safe and quiet holiday, given the somewhat restrictions and the fact we shouldn't be moving around too much. So please enjoy yourselves, and I hope everybody in town enjoys themselves and has a safe and happy holiday. And I'd like to, at this time, also thank staff for their tremendous support throughout the year. Certainly an unusual and challenging year on a number of fronts, but with COVID particularly, of course, being the story of the year. So made everything more interesting, challenging, and difficult. But you've done a great job trying to navigate your ways through that and keep the community up to date on everything. So many thanks for that from me. Moving on to deputations, we have none today, so we're on to the consent agenda. So we'll discuss, go through the correspondence per usual, and speak up if you wish to either make a comment on an item of correspondence or extract it for discussion and debate. So the first item, 6.1.1, a request regarding Bill C-213, Canada Pharmacare Act. And I think we need a decision on whether it will be received or endorsed, because it doesn't say on there. So it's an email or a communication from Mr. Peter Julian, Ms. Jenny Kwan, and Mr. Don Davies regarding a request for the Council of the Town of Deep River's formal endorsement of Bill C-213 of the Canada Pharmacare Act. Okay, the second item is 6.1.2, proposed water and wastewater rates, a letter from Marion Thompson, a resident. And we have 6.1.3, which is the letter from John Yakubuski regarding RED grant, I think, programs. And I believe Ms. Mellon can bring that up on the screen.
Yes, I'll do that right now.
So we'll just leave that up for a minute so people can have a chance to see it. Okay, so that's available for application until February 1st, 2021. And I know this council, this town has benefited from a RED grant in the recent past, or maybe 2 years ago. So we may have some interest in that ourselves. So those are all the matters, but yeah. So if there's no extractions, then we're going to call the vote on them. Could we have a mover? Councillor Reeve Doncaster?
Just a question on that letter specifically. Yeah. I guess the question would be through you for staff. Do we have a project ready that we could apply for under this program?
Your Worship, through you to council, I believe that once again, it might be a tricky timing on the grant application, because I believe we applied for a RED grant for our community improvement plan. We were not successful, as at that time we were told the requirement to be successful on a RED grant, one of the requirements was to have a community improvement plan. So when we look at the timing of our current community improvement plan, which is certainly the background report, it's moving along quite quickly. So the timing is kind of interesting on this. And we haven't had an opportunity yet to confirm whether that condition has been removed or whether it still exists. So in the event that there is still a condition that you have to have a community improvement plan, we may well be able to position ourselves so that we have adopted one prior to putting in an application, and that the RED grant would quite potentially fit into some of the programs proposed in the community improvement plan, which we haven't yet seen, but we have an idea of what they might be. So I guess that's what I'm looking at as a possibility.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. And I just want to, sorry, Councillor Hughes, do you have more to add to that? Please go ahead.
I mean, I must admit, I just skimmed through the letter, but there was a reference to economic development projects. Would any of our marketing plans for the coming year fit into that at all? Like I said, I just skimmed the letter, but just as another option if the CIP isn't ready.
Yeah, I think they might, Councillor Hughes, and I think based on when I saw the last RED grant approval list, Laurentian Hills got a couple of programs, so I don't think it's limited to one based on what happened last time. And I will say that we got advice last time that we couldn't apply without a community improvement plan. However, we didn't actually apply and get turned down. So because we have one substantially in progress, close, it may be, I personally think there's potential to apply under potentially both items.
Right.
That helps. So could we have a mover then for adoption of the correspondence? Councillor McLaren?
No, all I was going to say there is let's not disqualify ourselves. Make an application out, let them disqualify us.
Yeah, that would be the way to go unless it was very strong.
That's right.
Just there is a fair amount of effort to put forward to these grant applications, as we've come to notice recently. And I know for sure the ICON grant. So, you know, if there was a no win, I wouldn't suggest the effort. But I think in this case, we probably have good potential. So I agree. Reeve Doncaster?
Yeah, I just would once again point out that Michael Barber at the county is available to assist, and he does a lot of RED grant applications, so he would know that system quite well. And I would encourage staff to use him for any of our grant applications, even if it's just to review it after we've created it, because there may be some key elements or points that he may know that should be in there or not. So anyway, it's a resource that's available to us. It's certainly up to staff if they want to avail themselves.
Oh, good to know. Thanks for mentioning that, Reeve. So Councillor Myers, you're on the Zoom call now. Could you move us for the correspondence, items of correspondence, please?
Certainly. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Fitton. Be it resolved that all of the proposed resolutions shown in section 6.1 correspondence of the agenda be approved and adopted by council in the order that they appear on the agenda and sequentially numbered.
Thank you. Any further discussion of the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, correspondence is carried. Moving on to minutes. We have, I believe, 2 items on the agenda. Minutes with regard to 6.2.1 Marketing Task Force minutes of November 30th, 2020. And 6.2.2, the December 2nd council meeting minutes. Does anybody wish to extract any of those items or comment on them? All right, seeing none. Councillor Reeve Doncaster, could you please put the motion on the table to receive the minutes?
Certainly, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes. Be it resolved that the proposed resolutions shown in section 6.2 minutes of the agenda be approved and adopted by council in the order that they appear on the agenda and sequentially numbered.
All right. Any discussion of the motion? All in favor? And that's carried as well. Okay, on to reports. So we've got a few reports tonight. 6.3.1, Report 2020 Public Works 013, Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, COVID-19 Resilience Infrastructure Stream from David McCarthy and Eric McQuestion. So any comment or extraction? Councillor Hughes, please.
Can I ask that that be extracted, please?
Sure. Okay, that is hereby extracted. At 6.3.2, report number 2020 CAO 012, document storage building, deteriorated files from Sean Patterson, CAO. Any comment or extraction on that one? Mr. Patterson, is there any comment you'd like to make on that? Just in terms of summary or of it.
Your worship, pretty straightforward. We had Halfords come in and look at it in an effort to salvage anything we could. And they said they were very, very clear. We didn't expect the outcome would be much different, but from a due diligence point of view, we thought we needed that professional opinion. And they confirmed what we suspected, which is there's nothing to save there. It's heavily deteriorated and the building has become a hazard. So in conjunction with the fire department, we believe we've got a strategy, a safe strategy that's going to be minimal efforts and costs to deal with the destruction of the destroyed documents.
Thank you. The picture certainly told a story. Okay, so seeing no extraction there, we're moving on to 6.3.3, Kings Farm application for removal of heritage designation. Report 2020 CAO 013, entitled Kings Farm Heritage Committee. Councillor McLaren.
I'd like to extract that, please.
Sure can. Okay. That one is extracted. And then we're going to 6.3.4, the 2021 corporate calendar from Jackie Mellon Clerk. Any comment or extraction? Everybody had a chance to review? Okay, so seeing none, that contains. So could we have a mover, Councillor Hughes, for adoption of the reports, save and accept item 6.3.1 and 6.3.3.
Moved by myself, seconded by Reeve Doncaster. Be it resolved that all of the proposed resolutions shown in section 6.3 reports of the agenda be approved and adopted by council in the order that they appear in the agenda and sequentially numbered, save 6.3.1 and 6.3.3, which are extracted.
Thank you. Any discussion of that motion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, that's carried. And going to 6.4, items extracted from the consent agenda. So Councillor Hughes, will let you go first with 6.3.1, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. So my question is, around the, I certainly support updating the arena, the mezzanine in particular. It certainly needs that, and I think the community space would be valuable. It's just the question around the selection of the option of a chairlift to deal with a pretty obvious accessibility issue, and whether there's other options that could or were considered that might provide more flexibility for I guess, more access challenges, whether it's carrying equipment up or parents with strollers, that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Staff, do you want to?
Thank you, Your Worship, to Council. Staff did investigate two alternative options to the chairlift, such as a ramping system and a small two-person elevator device. However, to be compliant with the Ontarians with Disabilities Act, the ramp system, mainly the slope, which is a 12:1 ratio, and the physical structure and layout of the arena made this a non-viable option. Staff also contacted local businesses, Shamrock Suites, the Bears Den, the Legion, and reached out to Whitewater Region and discussed the elevators that they have installed. Staff took this information and investigating pricing. It was determined that a small two-person, 1,000-pound capacity elevator which does not include shaft construction, electrical work, and the necessary engineered diagrams, would cost approximately $38,600. Based on brief conversations with contractors, it's my opinion that this project could total, like an elevator installation would total approximately $80,000 to $100,000 for complete install.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Mr. Patterson, and then Mr. McLaren, go ahead.
If I might, Your Worship, through to Council, expand on David's point. So the staff have, in essence, tried to focus, if you look at the parameters for that funding, municipal buildings is one of the big ones that would be relevant to us. And what we tried to do was focus on upgrades that we had put in front of Council previously that would fall into the parameters and the guidelines of the funding. Certainly Councillor Hughes's point is a good one, in the sense that a stair lift does limit, it helps with accessibility, but it doesn't help everybody, is one point. The other point is it does create something that that's, you know, kids may play on, or it creates a little bit of a safety hazard for the regular use of the stairwell. Staff have kind of tried to respond to this fairly quickly, and perhaps there are some alternative things that have come to mind. And I think it speaks a little bit to the condition and age of our buildings that, for example, since this report was written, we've just received a quote because we had a breakdown on the Dectron at the pool. And the quote to fix it immediately is just over $20,000. And the quote to sort of overhaul it is just over $60,000. So these things are coming up so rapidly, and some of that is age, that I certainly would suggest we are having some challenges around getting that in front of you and being sort of ahead of the game on that one. So happy to, we do have some other things that have been on the radar that would be possibilities that we believe would qualify if we wanted to further investigate the accessibility issue, that portion of the proposed scope for this grant application. So that's about $25,500. We spoke of the issue with the Dectron that's not yet been in front of you. We also spoke of the project of the sound baffles that has been an ongoing problem at the pool, might readily qualify for it. So those are just a couple of ideas for Council's consideration.
Thank you. Councillor McLaren, you had your hand up. Did you want to add any more?
I'm definitely interested in exploring more of the lift at the arena. Well, the other options don't suit everybody. If you are in a power walker, like a motorized cart, you can't get up the stair very well. The outside ramp situation, where people have mobility problems, walking up a ramp, regardless of what kind of incline you have on it, would be difficult. I think the lift inside would be the more appropriate thing. It would accommodate wheelchairs, people with motorized scooters, the whole thing. I think we need to not rush into it. If we're going to spend the money, we need to do something that's going to capture all the needs of all the accessible people that need some help. I know that Renfrew Arena has one in, the municipal office in called and has the same idea, and they're called a lift. There's one in Shamrock Switch, which I was involved in putting it in. They're a lift and they're a key operation thing. So the kids can't play on them and whatnot. So to operate, you have to use a key. So it keeps control on the use of the stuff. I think we need to take time and to look at it. I know there's some talk about the washrooms at the arena and stuff. And right now, not a very big demand on the washrooms at the arena with COVID and stuff. So can we push these other ones back and wait till next year? Maybe there's grant money to improve the washrooms, make them more accessible. I think we need to take our time and do our homework and give Mr. McCarthy time to get the quotes that are required.
Okay. Councillor Hughes, do you have any more to add on this?
Well, I just want to thank staff for getting the information. Obviously, a switchback ramp of 10 switchbacks is not very practical if it takes the whole lobby, and that's the problem with retrofitting. But I think what I'm hearing is that there may be some other options that could still be looked at, and I think I would like maybe for us to think about just that aspect of the grant application, the access part, just maybe taking that out and just giving that a little bit more time. And I'm hearing that we can replace that with perhaps, so it would keep the rest of the upgrade for the rest of the mezzanine, and perhaps adding up to your limit of 100,000, the pool piece that we need. It sounds like there's a few things that we could add that we wouldn't have any problem coming up with things to apply for. And it's not putting off the accessibility question forever. Obviously, it needs to be addressed if we want the mezzanine to be used, but perhaps taking the year to have it come back, or if other grants come available, either come back next year or at another time.
Reeve Doncaster. Thank you, Councillor Hughes. And Reeve Doncaster, and then Councillor Fitton.
I hear what people are saying around the table, and what I'm not seeing, and I thought I knew what it was, but I don't know what the deadline for the application is. But if we're going to get 80% grant funding for a project, I think we should be applying for it. You're talking about putting in, enhancing the facilities to a certain degree. Is it perfect? Maybe not, but if somebody else is going to pay 80% of it, I think we should be applying.
I believe Mr. Smith has a comment on the deadline, perhaps. You've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Council. The deadline is actually December 21st, so we're coming up very quickly to the deadline. And the grant is actually 80% federally funded and 20% provincially funded. So it's actually no municipal portion as long as we stay within the first $100,000, which is our allocation, which is why working with Mr. McCarthy and Mr. Patterson, we were trying to find projects initially that would fit within the scope and be within the $100,000, but as close as we could to it without going over.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Fitton and then Mr. Patterson. Go ahead, Councillor Fitton.
So part of that actually just answers my question. I much the same sentiment. I don't want to spend any municipal dollars twice. If it made sense to do it once right instead of doing it twice because we're doing it twice. But at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense to hold back as Reeve Doncaster said, it doesn't make sense to hold back this application, especially if it's 80% federal, 20% provincially funded. Doesn't cost the municipality and the taxpayers anything. We get a lift while we can still explore doing it a little bit better, especially if there's that financial component. So,
Mr. Patterson, go ahead.
Your Worship, through you to Council, and this is an important part of this. This is earmarked for Deep River, so this wouldn't really be deemed as a competitive process. So as long as our projects we're recommending are within the guidelines, we're going to get this grant money. So it really is, what do we want to spend it on? And that was the approach we took, is let's grab some things that qualify that are on our list. And recreational facilities, municipal buildings was a key component of that. A lot of the other stuff was things that we don't really have significant expenses on that really don't qualify. And some of that is highlighted in the report. So I think that that's critical. And the other thing that's worth mentioning is this is one of these, Get Ontario Back to Work grants that had a very short turnaround time. So yes, in fact, December 21st is the deadline. We are certainly have done some of the narrative work on the grant application, and we're going to try and get it out the door as quickly as we can to make sure we meet that deadline. So it's really about the scope in the grant, and certainly however it's funded, this piece around the Dectron is going to come before council looking for funding on it. So if council is looking for a relatively easy project to redirect that stair lift money to, because they want to do further investigation, that might be an appropriate one, because that's work that's going to have to be conducted, whether we do it through the grant or not, if provided we want to continue with a reasonable HVAC approach at the pool.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. I have very little experience with a chairlift from my past career, and I'm going to look at Chief McCrae, because I know he's sitting there on this meeting. But in the computer building at Chalk River Laboratories, I believe there's a stair lift, Chief, and I can't remember it ever being used. I think we had to dust it and refurbish around it a couple of times, and I'm wondering if you have any knowledge or comment on the use of that.
No, I your worship, through to council, I don't have any knowledge of the maintenance and the upkeep on that device.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure. I know I sign a check for our elevators in our existing facilities, and I believe it's like $1,500 or $2,000 every 6 months. Is that the maintenance fee for a lift? There is an ongoing fee. And I don't know if it's going to be the same for a stair lift as it is for a elevating device, like an elevator.
Is that directed to me?
No, that would be to Mr. Patterson or Mr. McCarthy. I get or Mr. Smith. I get the check to sign.
Certainly, your worship, through to council. I don't believe it's quite that much. I think I want to say well, maybe it is. It's a little bit more than that. So I want to say we are somewhere in the vicinity of somewhere between $600 and $700 a month. And maybe Mr. McCarthy can give me an affirmative nod if that's what he recalls. I think that's about right. That covers both the elevator at Town Hall and the library. I do not believe the requirement for a lift would be quite the same, because it doesn't have the same capacity and components. However, I would make an assumption, and I don't know if Mr. McCarthy has done enough homework yet, that it would require a TSSA inspection. So it certainly would have some ongoing cost to it, a lift system.
Yeah, and I'm not objecting to the cost, because I've been there when people couldn't get upstairs, and I felt very badly for them. I believe it was grandparents trying to see their kids' science experiments, and they couldn't get upstairs. So and I believe they had a walker, if I'm not mistaken. So I see the need. I'm on the page of, if we spent the money on a stair lift and nobody used it and we had ongoing costs, like what I think I saw in my past life, then maybe it is better to bite the bullet and put a proper lift or a fancy ramp in, if there was possibly space. But so I am kind of I'm on the fence, but I'm kind of leaning towards not putting a stair lift in if there's a better option. So I would support modifying the report somewhat to include something else if somebody wants to make that motion. Councillor Myers, go ahead.
Sorry. I guess my comment would be, considering the tight deadline that we have, and if I'm interpreting, I believe what I heard Mr. Patterson say is that we could ask for, if we get the grant approved, if we have the application approved, I believe there would be Mr. Patterson could correct me if I'm wrong, but there might be an opportunity to ask for relief to swap out the project that we applied for something else, rather than put everything, like put the stair lift project on hold. I would suggest, if that's the case, that we go ahead with the application as it's prepared so that we don't miss the deadline. And then if we are going to take a serious look at a different kind of lift, find other projects, as I think Mr. Patterson suggested, like the Dectron, that we could swap out that portion of the money for.
I'm going to ask Mr. Patterson to clarify his suggestion on that. Thank you, Councillor.
Certainly, Your Worship, through you to Council. What I might provide, I'm not sure how easy it will be to get an answer or a confirmation from them that they will allow us that flexibility after the submission of the grant. It might be harder to get the answer to that question before the 21st than to write the grant proposal. So what I might suggest is that we take and modify the resolution. It'd be one possibility to just put one more line in there, and that staff be directed to remove the stair lift component of the grant and replace it with upgrades to the Dectron unit, for example. And then we could quite simply make adjustments on the grant application to reflect that. And if council further wanted to direct staff to look at putting together a more in-depth proposal on options for accessibility to the mezzanine, that we could you could incorporate that into the resolution also, if you desire.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes?
I'm happy to make that motion exactly as Mr. Patterson suggested, to propose that amendment. I think that still gives us, we're still applying for the full grant money that's available. We're not making up a project. These are obviously very worthwhile projects. And it also gives us a little bit of time to look at look further at some other options. So it would be to propose amendment that to the resolution that includes a statement that staff be directed to substitute the stair lift project with updates to and that staff be directed to investigate additional options for improving access to the mezzanine. I mean, I think it's as broad as that.
But not for the grant application. But not for the grant application.
No, separately. I think
separate initiative after.
That substituting the other project for that will bring us to our maximum anyway, I expect. So.
Okay.
So I'll propose amendment.
So we have a proposed amendment to the existing resolution. Do we have a seconder for that amendment?
Certainly.
You'll second that? Any discussion on the proposed or the amended amendment or amended motion?
We have that read out as we're voting on it. We know what we're voting on.
Jack, Ms. Mellon, are you able to read that amended motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
I believe it's in short form, so I hope I get it right. But be it resolved that report number 2020 PW013 entitled ISIP COVID-19 Resilience Infrastructure Team be received, and that staff be directed to remove the stair lift
component.
And replace it with upgrades to the Dectron unit. And further that staff be directed to put together, now I have sort of combined Mr. Patterson's and Councillor Hughes. And further that staff be directed to put together a more comprehensive proposal and investigate additional options for improving access to the mezzanine. Accessible access to the mezzanine.
Thank you, Ms. Mellon. Mr. Patterson, you've got something to add to that? You're muted. Thanks.
Sorry about that, Your Worship. Through to council, I think it's important that we keep the whole resolution that exists now and add those 2 bullets, because it speaks to the endorsement of the application and submitting the application. And if we just simply had the resolution exactly as it's written in the report, but we added the line about replacing the stair lift in the financial considerations with the Dectron upgrade project, and that staff be directed to further research accessibility options for the arena mezzanine.
Yeah.
Councillor McLaren, are you comfortable with that, or do you want it read again?
Excuse me, when Mr. Patterson said to the Dectron, we're going to repair it or upgrade it?
I used the word upgrade. We're not gonna, I don't think we can afford to do the $60,000 worth of work until we do some more homework. So I'm talking about the immediate stuff that is repairs. I'm using the word upgrade primarily because it may fit a little bit nicer into the application.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So we have an amended motion on the table. Any further discussion of the motion? We'll call the vote on that motion. All in favor of the amended motion? I think that's 5. So that carries. Opposed? Does anybody want to oppose? Okay. Thank you. Noted. Okay, moving on to the next extracted item. I'll let you lead that, Councillor McLaren, regarding Kings Farm 6.3.3.
Thank you. Yes. On today's report, 2020 CO-013, there's references made here with no material to support it. As council received a letter from the property owner, that's on page 2 of the background. It says council received a letter from the property owner expressing concerns that the property taxes reduction would not be suffice enough to provide them with the revenue. Where is that letter? I've never seen a copy of that letter.
I believe that letter was included at our last council meeting.
Well, not attached to it, and I've never received it. There were some issues with the server. I think a lot of us did not get some of the information. I did not get the invite to the council meeting. I think some other councils missed the invite and went somewhere else. Further down on that page, it says staff received the email confirmation that the owner would like to proceed with their request to have the heritage designation bylaw repealed. Again, I've never seen a copy of that email.
Okay.
And then when you move into the bylaw part of it, which I know is kind of uncertain of what's happening, there was a heritage committee and bylaw was established, excuse me, at the time. And under section 28.1 in the report, council of the municipality may, by bylaw, establish a municipal heritage committee to advise of council and whatnot. And I would suggest at that time that council may be part of the committee. Reading that, I guess we cannot be part of the committee because we're to take advice from the committee and assist the advice and assistance from the council. That is repeated several times throughout that section 28 of the heritage. And then when I go to, I guess, report number 2020 CB002, on the background, the first, second line says, due to the Heritage Act, the demolition permit was denied. What was the Heritage Act? Why was the permit denied? Under what conditions? There's very little information here. When we're going to talk to a section of an act, we should put down the actual council knows what they're talking about. And it's just as due to the Heritage Act. Pretty vague. There's no information there. I'd like to know what act, so we look it up. The building is at a point that maybe could be. Then in the letter that we received from the owners, this letter is to inform and provide you with a 60-day notice as per the Heritage Act. You read that and you think, okay, under the Heritage Act, they request to have the building torn down. What is the Heritage Act that provides for this? It seems like it was a very easy process to provide a letter to the Heritage Act as to why they were tearing it down. And that cost us all to start, and then it was denied. So this letter is to inform and provide you a 60-day notice as per the Heritage Act. Again, you know, time not to look this stuff up. What does that really refer to? There is. When you go to the attachment 4 of that report, number 4 says bylaw requirements. Now, I don't know if this is applying for a new bylaw or the original bylaw that was passed back in 83, 84. It says in a bylaw, in a bylaw under this act, the local municipality must specify a percentage that satisfies the requirements of the subsection 3 that will be used to calculate the amount of tax reductions. Well, if you read the original bylaw, there's nothing talking about tax reduction in the original bylaw. I think this is some stuff we need to slow down and do this right. This is not as simple as we may think it is. The request for them to tear it down. We have their letter, but we don't have all the information, all the letters that were sent to the town. It's not in this report. And should I have to go out and look for them in other reports or wherever they should be? And I think we have to also, you know, this is more complicated than we think here. We have these people who have purchased this property not knowing this is there. Maybe we can say shame on them. Other people have purchased it not knowing this heritage destination is there. We can say shame on them, but we got to consider these people.
So what's
if they have a mortgage on this property that the bank going to default on, what's the insurance going to say when the insurance says, "Oh, we didn't know you had a heritage property here"? What's the liability to their insurance? I think there's things we need to really consider before we make any decision. So I'd like to set this aside, table it for now until we get the information, get all the reports that is mentioned, all the letters that are mentioned in the report, and we have that for council to make an informed decision.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hughes, do you have a comment or?
Just a quick question on setting up a heritage committee. I mean, you know, if that's the path we take, but we will have no choice there, I think, and we'll have to set that up. I'm just wondering whether the act actually includes terms of reference or responsibilities for a committee, a heritage committee, or is that something we have from when they were set up originally? if we're going to set up a committee, we would need to give them some kind of terms of reference. So I'm just wondering if that exists or if we should start thinking about what that would look like in anticipation of perhaps needing one.
Okay, that would be a question for staff, Councillor or Mr. Patterson.
Certainly, Your Worship, through you to council. I just want to clarify something to eliminate any confusion. There's only one attachment to this report, and that attachment is the report that council received at the last council meeting. So that report that council received at the last council meeting had attachments. So that's what's being looked at there. So in the research we've done, as per direction and the resolution that was passed at the last council meeting, staff have further investigated. Mr. Labra and myself attended Kings Farm, met with the owners, had quite a good discussion with them, and they took 24-hour period to make their decision on whether they wanted to still formally request a repeal of the designation bylaw as per outlined in the Heritage Act. The sections of the Heritage Act that are in the background of this report are 28.1, 30.1, and 31.2. And in essence, what they say, so for a municipally designated heritage site that is then registered, which is the case we have here. The other thing that we have in this have confirmed is that there was in fact a bylaw designating a heritage committee. So council didn't have to do that in the day, but they did. So we believe we would have to repeal the bylaw and then have that approved by the province if council wanted to consider this matter without consultation of a heritage committee. But because we have a bylaw designating one, staff felt the most prudent way to follow the process is to follow the Heritage Act in terms of reconstituting a heritage committee. Yes, I agree. That's part of the reason it's before you tonight and it was late coming is because it is time sensitive. We have a 90-day clock that started on December the 10th. Staff are more than, really all we're doing here is advertising for people. The resolution just asks council to give us direction to advertise for people for a heritage committee, for the striking committee to consider. That would then provide council with a committee to consult with in regards to making a decision, because the next step in the process after they've consulted with the Heritage Committee is that council needs to make a decision on whether they plan to approve the request to repeal the bylaw or not. And if they approve the request to repeal the bylaw, then there's a public consultation that has to happen, which includes an appeal process from the public if council subsequently continues down that path. So there's quite a process that needs to happen, and council need to give a response within that 90-day window. So that's why it's before you this evening. And again, the resolution this evening is simply to direct staff to advertise for 5 members. Something Councillor McLaren brought up was a council member on the Heritage Committee. The way I read that, it doesn't sound like that would be appropriate. Having said that, the last Heritage Committee was constituted of 7 members, and I believe Councillor Dillabo was one of those 7 members. Currently, the legislation reads there must be a minimum of 5 members of that committee, and it's not completely clear on whether a council member can sit on it or not. I would get a legal perspective on that before the decision was made, but I don't see any harm in them putting an application in if someone wanted to, and then we could confirm whether that was allowed. Thank you.
Mr. Patterson, can you clarify whether in the Heritage Act there are terms of reference for a Heritage Committee or a LACAC? I think they called them LACACs in the past.
I would suggest no, there isn't, and staff have not had an opportunity to dig back and see if we could find terms of reference from the 1984 committee that was in place. So the act is fairly short and succinct as it relates to a heritage committee and is fairly clear, but there's not a lot of information there around terms of reference that staff have certainly not found any in our reviews to date.
Okay, the terms of reference for the Heritage Committee would probably have to go with the advertisement, I would imagine. Similar to our marketing task force, and we had that approved, I think, first. So that may be a challenge if we don't have something that we can easily take from somebody else. I suspect there are examples out there, but okay, thank you. Councillor McLaren, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Just some information for Mr. Patterson. Upstairs where I set up sometimes for these meetings, there's binders full of council minutes. I don't know if they go back to 84. You may find some detail in it because back then they kept very long notes of council meetings and stuff. There may be some information there that you can draw from.
Okay, so Councillor McLaren, are you proposing amendment to the resolution?
No, the resolution is very simple. They're looking to establish a heritage committee, but I think this stuff that was given lacks a lot of information. And I'm prepared to move forward with this tonight to establish a heritage committee. The fact that we had one, it went defunct. What does that do to the process of the heritage committee, that the bylaw that was established back then? I think there's stuff we need to look at there, that when you have a heritage committee, it defuncts itself. There's no minutes, there's no nothing. Does everything go by the wayside when, you know, this is not for a year or two, this is for 20 years. There's never been a meeting of a heritage committee.
Well, I think each council creates their own committees. So any committee would cease to exist after the council that created it, I believe.
No.
I'm seeing.
Well, this is a committee, maybe outside council. Yeah, it's something we need to look at.
Ms. Mellon's nodding her head, or she was there, that I think the committee doesn't survive the end of council, so they would have to reestablish a committee for each council.
I would say so, Your Worship. They're usually appointed for the term of council, and then once the new council is in, they reappoint new members or the same members if they're
right. So back in the 80s, there may not have been another desire or need once they had already established that bylaw, I suspect.
Correct.
Okay, so Councillor McLaren, did I hear you correctly to say that you're okay with the resolution tonight to create?
You heard me correctly.
Okay. All right. So your other aspects are we need to do some more work, research on it, I think was the other comment that you had before we make decisions. Reeve Doncaster?
So I think just the resolution creating that committee, I would suggest that what a perfect opportunity to let that committee do all of that research and work for us.
Percent.
Thanks. Okay, so can we have somebody move the motion on Kings Farm application? Councillor Hughes.
Be it resolved that report number 2020 CAO-013 entitled Kings Farm Heritage Committee be received, that staff be directed to advertise for applications to form a heritage committee as part of the Ontario Heritage Act, and that staff provide all applications to the striking committee to complete the selection process.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder for that motion?
I'll second that.
Oh, okay, we'll let Councillor McLaren second it since he brought it forward. Any discussion of the motion on the table? Seeing none, I will vote on that. All in favor? All right, that's carried. Thanks, folks. I think the last item, we are now moving on to closed session. Oh, no, we have a bylaw. Bylaw with regards to interim tax levy for the new year. We have I don't have a mover for that. Item 7, bylaw 7.1, bylaw number 48, 2020, to provide for an interim tax levy, to provide the payment of taxes, and to provide for penalty and interest. Is there anything, Mr. Patterson, that you or Mr. Smith would like to add to that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Council. The bylaws for 2021. It can be passed in the November or December of the preceding year, and just with tight deadlines in case any impact from COVID, impacting meetings in January to meet the 28-day period. We wanted to get this before Council while we could.
Thank you for that forward thinking. Reeve Doncaster.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I think it's worth noting that the interim tax levy sets a tax rate that is 50%. So for the first half of the year for 2021, or the first half of any year for that matter, in the time that it typically will take us to pass our operating and capital budgets, although we're doing it more expeditiously in the last few years, this gives the town the authority of issuing tax bills at 50% of the previous year's tax rates.
Thank you, Reeve. I appreciate you clarifying that for the audience and the council. Any discussion? We need a mover for the motion. Councillor Rochon, would you prepare to do that, please? Thank you.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Fitton. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first and second, third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 48-2020, a bylaw to provide for an interim tax levy, to provide for the payment of taxes, and to provide for penalty and interest.
Thank you. Any discussion of the motion on the table? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, that's carried. Bylaw is done. And we're moving into closed session. Councillor Fitton, can you please move us into closed session for tonight?
Certainly. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Myers. Be it resolved that council move into closed session at 7:13 p.m. to address a matter in accordance with section 239(2) of the Municipal Act pertaining to a meeting or part of a meeting that may be closed to the public. Subject matter being considered is D, labor relations or employee negotiations, and K, a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on by on behalf of the municipality or local board. Regarding closed session tonight would be council meeting minutes of November 18th, 2020, and Town of Deep River and CNL Fire Service Agreement update.
Okay, any discussion of the motion to go into closed? Seeing none, all in favor?